Hey, day 4 of 100 Days of Code as I'm learning Python. This video is to hold myself accountable and track my progress. This is not an exhaustive learning video. This is for tracking my progress pretty much only. And I wanted to share about data types, which is what I went over today in my learning. Spent about an hour and a half, a little bit, probably a little less than an hour and a half today, but focused on data types, type checking, type error, and type conversion. So I will talk about just a few types of data. There's so many different types of data that you can work with when you're writing your code, but I'm only going to speak about probably 4 of them today. All right, so let's execute this code. Control Enter on Windows will execute it. Day 4 of 100 Days of Code. So when you're in this, actually the print statement, the print function that you see right here is actually one type of data type. So remember, a string is a sequence of characters that's inside quotations, and they can be single quotes, double quotes, or they can be triple quotes actually. Another data type is numerical data types, and so there's a variety of those as well, but the integer data type is the one that I went over. And so when you're working with integer data types, they're whole numbers, they're positive or negative, but they cannot be decimals, and they cannot include a decimal in the number. And that would not be an integer. That would actually be a float. So they're positive, negative, they cannot include decimals. And when you're working with them, so for example, you cannot enclose them in the quotations because it becomes a string. So this is not an integer. However, this would be an integer. And that's important when you're writing your code because it can produce a type error if you're assigning a data type or putting a certain data type that's unsupported in the function that you're working with, and it'll break your code and your program won't work properly. So that is important. I also said float was one, and this one includes decimals. So pi, whatever pi number is, it is a float, and this one contains a decimal. Another data type is the bouillon. And this is either true or false. Those are the only two possibilities. It has to be capital when you're writing this code in your program. So it has to start with a capital T for true or capital F for false. So those are our data types. Uh, Remember I said that when you're writing your code, sometimes you may get an error. So we talked a little bit about syntax errors in a previous video. When you're working with data types, you'll get a type error. And when you perform an incorrect operation, so for example, if I want to, let's create a variable that's number of characters, and we'll assign it this operation. We'll run it. Okay. So this is going to be our variable here. This is going to be the operation. And what it is it's asking the user to input their name, and then the function would print out the length. Len stands for length of characters in their name. And so if you print this, and we now can just use the variable, if you execute this, it tells you that there's 6 characters. Okay,